In this episode, we explore the art and science of project management. Hello, everyone. This is the Project Management Podcast live stream for episode number, where are we? 504. And I am Cornelius Fichtner. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me. Also, yeah, this is a video episode. So if you are only getting the audio, then please visit pm-podcast.com/504 or pm-podcast.com/YouTube to play the video version. And if you are on YouTube, then please do me the favor to like and subscribe. It really does help. So, project management is often seen as a balancing act between art and science. And today we are looking at the complexities of our field, exploring how to navigate challenges like scope creep, manage overwhelming communication, mitigate risks, and managing people to achieve project success. And to do this, please join me in welcoming Shannon Keenan, who is on the line from Westchester in Pennsylvania. Did I get that right, Shannon? Hello.
You did. Hello, Cornelius, and hello to all the people that are joining. Yes, I'm in Westchester, Pennsylvania, so very close to kind of the Delaware border and not too far from Philadelphia.
All right. For those of you who do not yet know who Shannon is, here's a quick bio. She is the co-founder and partner at artemisfactor.com, has over 25 years of expertise in the pharmaceutical and biotech sectors, driving operational and technical excellence through strategic project management. She's recognized for her ability to innovate and solve complex problems, and has a strong background in leading R&D, tech, and commercial teams to achieve business results. My first question for you, Shannon, is our topic is the art and science of project management. That's about this wide. So it could be anything or everything. What can our audience expect to learn from our conversation here today?
Yeah, Cornelius, I loved how calling kind of the art and the science. We like to think of it, it's not one size fits all, right? The nice thing is there are methods and processes for good project management. But as we often say to our clients and to our team, if it were easy, someone would have already done it. So each project, because projects really consist of, we look at it as kind of people, process, and technologies, and taking people through that change, whether it be through their organization of people, whether it be through the processes or technologies. And we say whenever you have people and you're taking them through change, there is going to be differences. So each project, although it's nice that there are processes and methodologies that can be utilized, each project is unique. So, what we try to kind of think about, I'm hoping people leave today with are, try to hold on to those methodologies and processes to hopefully make the projects more usable and able to get through, and that we always like to also make that it's fun, right? That we're with people and work a majority of our day in our life. So how do we keep that human element and how do we keep it fun? So utilize existing methodologies and processes. But and I really liked, as I listened, to some of the other podcasts and speakers that you had on your show, to make sure you have that flexibility. Don't be so rigid. Make sure that you bring that flexible approach and innovative approach. And I think that's a lot of the speakers that you brought to your audience is around to be, innovative. So what's nice, there's a lot of tools such as Project, Asana, Smart Sheets, which is great. And there are a lot of methodologies such as PMP, Agile, Waterfall. But how do you utilize those? How do you make sure that you bring people along this journey, because it's people and there's emotions that are involved? And how do you remain agile and look for opportunities to innovate and to make it fun, to make, that people feel excited and that they are looking forward to working on these projects that are ultimately going to bring in the group that I work with, hopefully benefits to patients, which is all of us and all of our loved ones.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that overview. In case you are watching us live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, or on X, then do go ahead. If you have a question, use the chat. Just type it in the chat and send it off. This does not work on X, I'm afraid. X does not communicate here with us. So if you have a question and you're watching on X, you would have to switch over maybe to YouTube and put your question in to the YouTube chat. Otherwise, we won't see it. So let us get started here with the first theme that we have here. Project management is easy. It often gets the reputation for being straightforward, right? And this is because, well, anybody can do a project. I mean, I've managed my kid's birthday party. That's a project. So therefore, project management is easy. Why does project management seem so simple to the layperson, yet when you look at it really in detail, it isn't? Where does this stem from? What do you think, Shannon?
Yeah, and I like even how you give the example of like your children's birthday parties, right? It may seem easy, but if you don't go through the process of writing down, even taking that first step of what does good look like, right? What is that ultimate goal of what does your child's good birthday party look like? What does a good project where, in the group that I work, which is in the pharma biotech space, what does good look like? Is it moving the organization through an organizational change where you want to make sure that now everybody understands what good looks like, what's their new role, that they understand the skill sets or capabilities they need for that role, or if not, identify what training they have to get? Or does good look like getting a new product, a new medication launched out to the public, and that entails that it's been approved. It entails that the sales force has been trained, the medical team has been trained. So I love when it was like, we do say project, oh, this is easy, it'll only take you a couple of weeks, and we always like to step back, and that's kind of like the tip of the iceberg. What if it were easy? It would have probably been done already. People would have done it, by themselves, already done it by themselves. They would not be reaching out to maybe someone in their company to lead it, or to like an external partner like Artemis to lead it. And so, why I think that from the years that I've been involved, that it's not easy is because when you are doing these mostly large transformational projects that go across business areas, people are involved, and there's emotions that are involved. There's a reason why people were doing a process A in the first place, because maybe, Jim invented the process. So now Jim has a feeling, thinks that that's the best way to do the process. So a lot of times when we say, oh, usually the work, Cornelius, it's interesting, right? Like, okay, your child's birthday party is easy, but when you get the emotional, the human element, maybe your son or daughter only likes gymnastics or likes softball, and maybe their best friend doesn't like that. So when you bring that human element into it, the ultimate goal is planning the birthday party, but really the real goal is that everyone has fun, everyone that feels that they were their feelings were taken into account in making sure that that birthday party was successful. That's just like these projects. People want to feel good at the end of the day, that their voice was heard, that their concerns were heard. And it's that exciting part is the human element, but also every project has different people that are involved. So that is what makes it, what we've seen, not easy.
Mm. You've been working in the pharma and life sciences for quite a while here. And maybe what are some of the unique challenges that you've seen? And as a person who has never worked in pharma and life sciences, I can imagine these projects are huge, not just dozens of stakeholders, but hundreds, thousands of stakeholders. And how does that change your strategy, your approach? So the unique aspects that you found, and maybe what does the amount of stakeholders do to the project?
Yeah. Yeah, that's really that. And I think it's interesting. So when we think of pharma and biotech and other industries like your financial or insurance industries, what we see in pharma and biotech is they are highly regulated, right? Which we want them to be. We want to make sure the medication is safe. We want to make sure that patients are safety. We want to make sure that it's effective, that what I'm taking is actually going to, not only is it not going to harm me, but it's going to make me better. So there is the regulated, which is important, but that adds complexity. Most of the clients that we work with, and I think that you probably see this across many industries, they're global. So you have global considerations, right? How maybe the US, what regulations they have versus China versus the UK. So you have the global component. You also have cross business area. So and I think this kind of also gets to that second question around the large amount of stakeholders. When you are working in some of these large, very matrix organizations, so we kind of say it's regulated global matrix organizations where you're not just working with one business area and they have one goal. When you're working in any, not even just big, but pharma and biotech, they have one ultimate goal, which is to, make patients' lives better, get medications out to patients. However, each business area has their goal, right? Legal is going to make sure that, okay, the company abides by the legal considerations, which is great. But as we know, there's always some risk, right? So you're going to have the quality and risk group. You're going to have the legal group. You're going to have the commercial, which is kind of your sales and marketing group. You're going to have your medical group. You're going to have the R&D group. Each group has a goal which should ladder up to that higher level goal of getting medications to patients. However, there's always going to be that conflict, a little bit of conflict. If you steer so heavy on that it's 100%, legally and, legal proof, you're probably going to be missing out on some benefit where, hey, you could get it to patients quicker, but maybe there's some legal regulations that you have to, challenges you need to get through. So I think when we think about if you run a project, a smaller project, which, in our day-to-day life, I think, as you said, is your child's birthday party. I mean, maybe if you're going on a big vacation, I have a family of 5, so I'm working with 5 stakeholders. When you're working in pharma and biotech and some of these large globally matrix organizations, it could be 200 people. So you're trying to make sure that everyone is clear on the ultimate goal, that you have strong communication to understand what the ultimate goal is, but also knowing where those stakeholders, what might be important to them and their business areas. So you're managing multiple stakeholders, which adds complexity to projects. If you're going from 5, my family of 5 on vacation versus 200 stakeholders from, Keenan family of 5, we got a pretty close goal and target. 200 people to get a product launched out to pharma is going to probably have 10 business areas, 200 stakeholders.
Wow, wonderful. So project management is, I should update this, not easy, right? You did mention communication, which is an excellent segue because that happens to be our next topic. Yeah, communication is undoubtedly crucial. And you mentioned to me earlier on, before we started the interview, that both over and under communication can be detrimental. Here, sort of signified with the person on the left, shh, don't communicate, and then the gentleman there on the right with the megaphone over communicating. Can you elaborate for us here? How can a project manager strike the right balance between, under communicating and over communicating?
Yeah, that's such I think especially in the world we live in today, right? That balance of the under communicating where you just either keep the communication to a small group or you keep it that communication on a file share that only a small group has access to versus over communicating where people it's almost like the boy that cried wolf where it's like if I'm getting updates or I'm getting emails or I'm people can get communicated in so many ways, emails, texts, um, uh, Kanban boards, you have them in different communication, Skype, FaceTime, so that it is managing what is that right level. What we found in I think again it kind of goes back to that project management is easy. It's understanding upfront what is going to work for the team, what is the right communication, and you're also going to bucket your stakeholders into needing different types of communication. So what you want to do at the beginning of the project is get a good understanding of, from the beginning, what's the goal? Who are your stakeholders? How and when should they be communicated? And what is that preferred channel? And looking at that, you're going to have, with your stakeholders, you're going to have some that need to be communicated at a high level. And maybe they only want to be communicated once a month. And then you're going to have others that might need more regularly. And is that an email? Is that a 15-minute daily stand-up? Once a week, daily, or twice a week? So really what you want to do is make sure that you get agreement from the team up front. What is that right level of communication? And what is that right cadence for communication? How often? And I think even as we talked at the beginning, Cornelius, and with your other speakers, what is, to be flexible. What you want to do is get that agreement up front to kind of communicate out that this is what the communication plan is going to be. Do we all agree that that makes sense? But check in. You want to have check-ins because as we know, projects at the beginning may need more communication. As the project is going on, you may just only need to be communicated on if there's an urgent problem, if there is a great success. And then as the project wraps up, you may have to need more frequent communication because as you're doing training or testing. So, I think going back, it's really making sure a lot of the works with projects, and I'm sure as we even talk about in our day-to-day life, is to make sure that you have that agreement up front, but to continuously look for opportunities to improve and to have those. I think you've talked about it with your other presenters, being agile, making sure you can look for ways to be innovative. You may have a team that you want to do a dashboard and they're so busy, they only want to be notified if things are red, right? That they only want to know if they need to jump in and they need to be available to, change that red to either your yellow or green. And then you have other teams that maybe you're going through a project where it requires more change management because people's roles are being impacted or the organization is being impacted, and maybe you want more frequent communication. So I think it goes back to like project management is easy, and it's kind of that I say that as a little kind of joke, or that it's an art and a science. I wish I could almost say that, hey, if it's this type of project you want to communicate once a month. I think really what it is that art and science. There are communication plans, there's stakeholder mapping, templates and tools that project managers can use to kind of gauge what is the communication path and channels and plan. But you also want to go back throughout the project and kind of check in with your kind of your senior stakeholders and make sure that is this still fitting the need, because the project has hopefully advanced throughout the timeline.
So going back to this image here, where we have an over communicator on the right and under communicator on the left, what's the greater danger based on your experience? Is it under communicating that is a bigger problem? Is it over communicating? No, it doesn't matter. Both are bad. What does your experience say here?
What I've seen, I think under communicating is probably what I've seen can has lead to like mistrust issues with the team, and sometimes things are under communicated because maybe the team isn't sure where the some of the where the project is, or doesn't know all the answer, or maybe they feel they don't want to over communicate. So I have seen teams under communicate where they think, as a project manager, I'm good. I know where what everything is going on and everything's happening. However, if you are not communicating that, okay, in a month out, you're going to have to do testing, or you're going to have to do training. Are you ready? Does 4 weeks give you enough time, or does that give you enough leeway for an approval process? So I have seen that under communicating could lead to mistrust issues, because people thinking that you're keeping communication or information from them, as opposed to over communicating, I think will sometimes frustrate the team, but it doesn't usually give enable or cause trust issues. What I've seen work best is an opportunity where you look to see, is there a dashboard where the information is there and the team can pull it when they want to get it. They're not waiting for the push, and maybe you're just pushing for large milestones. You're just going to push communication out for large milestones, important or critical milestones, or high risk or change in scope, and everything else is available on a dashboard where people can go to when they want to get the information.
Sorry, I was on mute here for a second. How much do you personally rely on technology, on those dashboards, to get communication out there versus face to face? We all know face to face is better, but if you have 200 stakeholders in the project, good luck doing face to face just only once a month, right? That's difficult. So how much do you need to rely on technology to get communication out?
Yeah, I mean, that I love that kind of that you raise that around that mix, right? Because as we know that in person, and as we're all trying to get back into that groove post COVID, in person, I think we've all seen is the most effective and collaborative, and kind of getting everybody aligned. What groups and projects that I've seen go really well are ones where maybe you have an initial kickoff and you get all of your major stakeholders together in face to face. And when we say that face to face, whether that is truly physically in that same location or in a virtual setting where you're kind of getting agreement. This is what the project goal is. This is what the milestones, these are what the risks are going to be. And, these are the resources, kind of understanding that. And then, where teams have been successful is then move to more of that technology based. And the great thing now is it's almost, the great thing is there's so many different technologies. Sometimes it's trying to see what is the best one that either works for the team or that the team is comfortable with. And what we've seen work, I mean, I'm sure as your audiences, you have things from easy where you have a share, where you just have an Excel or Microsoft plan, and you just have it on a team share and everyone can go get it, up to more automation where you can have, pretty up-to-date dashboards that are being updated, whether that's directly through Microsoft Project, that's being updated through other tools like Planisware or Asana or Smartsheets, and where you can then program them to send out communications based on certain milestones. So I think kind of to come back to that question, Cornelius, where I think it works, when you think about almost a percentage, I would say that, from a technology perspective, and especially with travel budgets and people to physically get together, and even with calendars, with people be able to get the whole team together virtually, it's almost probably like a 75 25 split, where I think 75% is more through technology, keeping up to date on communications and tracking the project, versus that 25% of either whether it be physically in person or a kind of virtual in person. And I think that, if you can have a split like that, where it's that 75-25 or 60-40 or 20-80, anywhere in there, where you at least allow some hybrid or in-person contact, where you're kicking off and maybe you're doing a health check midway through the project, and then where you're maybe also kind of, when you're getting close to going live, that deployment, you kind of get people together, and then in the rest of the project being able to work in that more using technology. I think if you set it up properly at the beginning, then you can utilize technology to keep the team connected and understanding where the project is throughout the rest of the life cycle.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So look for about a 75-25 split, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
And communication here is important, takes us to the next topic, because that we use communication to set expectations. And how does this then relate to preventing scope creep, goal plating? Both a challenge in many projects. I mean, I've led mostly smaller projects with 12 to 20 stakeholders maximum in IT. You've done the 200 plus projects in pharma and life sciences. I can imagine that scope creep and gold plating is a much bigger issue, because you have so many more people going, oh, we should do this and we could do that, and let's add here and let's do that. And suddenly the thing balloons out. How do you keep all of that together?
Yes, and this is such. I mean, this is probably the thing that keeps a lot of project managers and project teams up, right? Your business stakeholders up at night, because in a lot of project managers are going to be your. And I could say this because I'm a project manager. They're type A. They want things done right. They want it done, as close to perfect. And sometimes it is hard to live in that 80-20 rule, where let's all agree at the beginning, as I said, what is the goal? What is your charter? What is your project initiation plan on what good looks like? What are the requirements? It's almost kind of that traceability matrix. What are those requirements? What are the benefits you're going to get from those requirements? And we see, and I'm sure you've seen, and your and the listeners have seen, where scope creep and gold plating come from all sides, right? They come from the business, your stakeholders. They come from the project manager, from the project team, where you don't want to squash that innovation that can happen from, as you're going through the project and people really thinking about, oh, hey, this looks great, but it's almost like it's an and, like, yes, this looks great, and can I get this additional added on, and can I get this part automated? So you don't want to work as like a collaborative, innovative team. And especially as a project manager, you don't want to squash that innovation and that innovative thinking from the team. However, what you want to do is you want to put in a good change management process. And that's kind of where you can have new requirements. However, they need to go through the process where you fully understand what is the new requirement, what is the benefit to that requirement, what is now the impact to the current scope. And when we think of scope, it's people, it's people, it's budget, it is, and even with people, it's kind of their, not only their time, but also their morale, right? If you keep on hammering on new requirements, you're going to have the team that's scattered. So you want to have a good, at the beginning, change management process and agreement to understand that if we have a new requirement or approach that comes in, and wherever that comes in from, that could come in from the business, that could come in from the project team, whereas the project team is developing, as you know, you've been in the technology side, as you get your developers in there and they're like, oh my gosh, I heard the business say this is really a point of pain for them. And I think by us just, adding these lines of code, we can really, improve their efficiency. We can really improve their quality. How do you manage that? And you want to do that by having a change management process that looks at each requirement. And really, it's a risk assessment. You're kind of doing a risk base to understand, how's this going to impact the current project? How is it going to maybe give additional benefits? And really kind of be able to have that conversation to say, if this is really that important, maybe we have to increase the time of the project. We have to increase resources. We have to increase budget, or we have to remove something. We have to take out a requirement. So I think, as we're talking today, it is talking about like, hey, why are projects not easy? Why is communication so important? What do you do about kind of that scope creep and gold plating? And it is that understanding that even though if this is not in the initial project, you want to be able to have we almost keep kind of that, our project list. This is something that might not be in scope for this project. If your stakeholders agree that it's not the right requirement for this project, but maybe that's going to be in, your next version, in your 2.0. Or if it is going to give benefits, it's going to really innovate the current ways of working, then you're going to add it to the project, and everyone understands what it does. It allows that, and I think we talked a little bit before around trust. You really want to make sure that you're having that open communication, that the project team knows that, hey, you're not going to be adding new things at the last minute, right? That are going to impact the project, because this is what we agreed we want to deliver, and this is what the business says that they need. And also from the business side, that they now understand what they're getting. So if you have this process in place, this transparent communication, everybody knows, kind of as you're saying, how do you communicate to stakeholders and the team? This would be one where you would communicate. We've have a change of scope. We know that the project's going to maybe run longer, be more expensive. We need to bring more resources, but it's been evaluated and we know that it's the right thing to do. Or we're going to add it and we're going to remove a requirement, and you're kind of being transparent. Or you're not going to add it, but there's an opportunity maybe to add it in a next release.
Sorry, I keep going on mute here for some reason.
No worries.
Yeah. So I think we're going to have to take this segment right now and turn that into a how to avoid scope creep beginner's tutorial.
I wish it could be that easy, right, Cornelius? I wish it could be easy. I'm sure even if we think in our day-to-day, your son or daughter with their birthday party, it's like, I want this. Then all of a sudden you want the goodie bags. And you kind of have to make those trade-offs. And I think you make those trade-offs in business if you understand that, okay, well, listen, this is something that's really going to make the party. It's going to give it that wow factor. Great. We're going to do the goodie bag, but we're not going to have cupcakes and ice cream. We're just going to do cupcakes, right? So I think it's that with projects, is it a must-have or is it a nice-to-have?
Yeah, and before we move on to our next topic, which, by the way, is risk. So risk is coming up next. I want to make one statement here, and that's some people might say, well, just use agile project management. Because agile project management, there is no scope creep in agile project management. Yes, there is, because to me that argument doesn't fly. If you use agile project management, yes, you welcome changes. This is part of the thing. You listen to the customer brings new requirements to you, and then if you don't do all the things that Shannon just talked about, looking at those requirements, deciding which ones are right, which ones are wrong, grooming your backlog, doing all of that, you will have scope creep, even in agile project management methodologies if you don't manage the incoming change requests and new requirements properly. That is scope creep. All right.
Yes.
And
Yes,
now,
exactly. That's such a great point that you bring, Cornelius, because people do think, oh, we're just going to do. I'm like, no, no, no. Agile doesn't mean that it's fly by the night. There are still methodologies and processes for understanding, excuse me, what are the requirements. And even with Agile, you know what your North Star is. You know what you're building. It's not like we're on a rocket ship and we're starting to like build the engine. You have a high level plan of what you are building.
right. We are moving on, like I said here, from scope creep and gold plating to
Mhm.
risk management, because scope creep, gold plating, that often comes from these unforeseen challenges, these risks. And can you walk us through your approach to identifying and mitigating potential risks? How do you approach this?
Yeah, yeah, that and you know, as we're talking about this today, Cornelius, and I think about project teams that I'm working with or have worked on, you know, as we're talking about those points, and I know we've talked about, you know, making sure we understand the goal, we have, you know, project management, understanding that it can be complex, knowing about the communication. A lot comes down to kind of building that trust with the team and having that open communication. So as we're talking about risk, you know, sometimes this could be kind of that hold the mirror up in the face of the team that we agreed that we're going to, you know, we agreed that we want to launch a drug product in 18 months from today, right? And we know that all the steps that are involved to do that. And really what sometimes risk is kind of holding that mirror up to the team to say, what do we know, and let's be honest and transparent, because we're in a trusted group, we all have that one aligned goal of the project we want to deliver. Do we know, because sometimes at the beginning you may know what might be some risks, right? There could be a risk that there could be an open head count, right? Someone that's a critical resource may not be hired yet. It could be that we're waiting on in pharma, we're waiting for a clinical trial to read out, right? That I might not. So in the perfect world, it would be great that, you know, as we talk about that intake, if we have everything we needed in the project, we have everything in the intake form, and we know exactly what we need. In the real world, we know that doesn't happen. So what you want to do is at the beginning of the project, and you're also going to do it throughout the project because things change. But at the beginning of the project, it's like, what do we know might be potential risks? And we think about some of the projects that you did with technology. Some of them it's brand new technology. It has never been used before. We think that it could really be impactful to this team or business or group, but it's never been used for that, you know, process or indication. So, you know, let's outline what that risk is. And what we kind of say is we put together kind of a risk register. What's that risk? How could you mitigate that risk? So you're kind of being that person that's not just the naysayer that, no, it's not going to work because we tried it before. No, it's not going to work because we don't have senior leader buy-in. You're going to be that person that says, you know what? In the past, we didn't have senior leader buy-in. I know that they're saying they want this, but that is a risk. How can we mitigate it? Let's mitigate it, because let's make sure we have someone that is our sponsor that is at that senior exec level that in the past we had maybe got some roadblocks from. Maybe another risk is, well, we've never used that technology for this process. Okay, that's a risk. Maybe we're going to pilot. Maybe we're going to not just do the project where we do one final deliverable on August 30th. We're going to do, you know, have little groups that pilot it. So you really want to think through not just it's almost good to have those people on your team that say, that's not going to work, but you want to then push them to say, well, why? Well, what could we do to make it work? And so what you're doing is kind of you're getting ahead of what those potential risks could be. And so what you want to do is you want to do that at the beginning of a project, but then really you want to be looking at that throughout the project, because it's going to change. You may have a great team that was set up January 1st for your August deliverable. And guess what? Maybe the senior leader decided to leave. Maybe the clinical trial, it got extended and you're not going to get the readout. So what you want to do is you want to be checking in on those risks. You want to have a log of them, either a risk registry or risk log, because you want to then make decisions. Okay, that risk is now, we've mitigated that risk. So it's no longer an issue. But if it comes up in another month, you could go back and say, well, that was a risk, but this is how we mitigate it. Has anything changed? No. So it's no longer a risk. And you're keeping that open so that it's transparent to everybody that's working on the project. So people know that, yes, we've identified this as a risk and maybe someone on the team can help mitigate it. So I think that helps to build the trust. It builds that open and transparent communication that you want to make sure that risk registry is visible to the team throughout, and whether that is through communicating, as we said, pushing that information out, or whether you want to have it on a dashboard or a central location that the team can look at on a routine basis to understand what are the risks and how you possibly can mitigate it.
You talked us through about 15 risks right now. And oftentimes that is the extent of my risk register. It ends at about 15 to 20 risks. In pharma, on your projects, how long is your risk register? What's sort of the average number of risks that you need to deal with?
You know what? I would have to say it's not that much larger than like a 20.
Okay.
You also want, because what you want to do is you want to really, what should be on your risk registry are your critical things that might cause you to miss a milestone, because there are always going to be, this person's going to be out on vacation or maternity. Okay. Because and I would say on an active, you probably should be having no more than 10. You should be trying to close them. And some things I think as a team, you could probably say, well, that could be a concern, but is that really going to impact the project? Is that going to impact the resources we need, the budget, the timeline, or the quality? I also want to pull quality in when we're looking at projects, especially in regulated industries like pharma and biotech. But, usually I would say it's in that space of about 20, because if you get things bigger than that, it's going to become unmanageable.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. So we were at risk right now, and we're going to bring it to a close because everything that we've talked about so far, scope creep, communication, risk management, requires a strong team. And everybody always talks about a high-performing team, especially when it comes to complex environments.
Yes.
So, Shannon, tell us, how do you get a high-performing team in a complex environment like pharma and life sciences? What's your secret?
Yeah, I wish there was a secret, and I wish if you find out, and I'll be listening to your future podcast. If you find out, let me know, or if any of your speakers, I have not found that secret. I love that you call this section kind of the human element. I think there is, that's where we go back, where projects are not easy, because a big part of it is that human element, and people are coming at the project team with preconceived notions, with what they think success, what a good project look like, what their role on the project is. And so what I've seen work well on teams are teams where you are keeping that right level of communication. First of all, it's almost you take a step back, and I think it's even going back to like getting the team together in that, whether it's that hybrid or in person, to kick off, and making sure that everyone is hearing the same message from your sponsor. Everyone has the opportunity that they feel like they've been heard, right? That it's kind of at the beginning of the project and throughout the project, and they have an opportunity. If it's a risk registry, everyone on the team can go in and enter a risk. Now, if they're putting a risk in, They also have to put in what they think the mitigation plan is. They also have to put in who they think should be accountable. So you want people to feel accountable. You want people to feel heard. You want people to feel part of the solution rather than just the problem. So it really is around building that trust from the beginning, building that transparent project plan, communication plan, letting people know this is where the information is. And if we feel like it's not in the right format or you're not hearing it the right way, how do we work to make sure that you understand as a stakeholder, as someone being impacted by this project, that you understand what your role is and what the impact to you might be? Because at the end of the day, that's what people care about. They want to know, what does this mean to me, and how is hopefully my life will be easier, and not harder. But the reality is, with change, it always might be a little harder, the change curve, until it gets better. So I think I love that you put in here that the human element, and I wish there was that secret sauce of that. But I really think that's the part that makes it maybe not easy, but that makes it interesting, right? That makes the projects so interesting. You get the dynamics of the different people across. You get the different stakeholders coming from different business areas. So you might have a tech person and a legal person and a quality person and an R&D person and a sales and marketing. And by those people, from their background, they are going to bring their unique perspective to the project. So I think, although there's no secret, and that's what sometimes makes it that we say the bottom of the iceberg, we always say, hey, the project itself is not hard, right? You kind of know this is the system that you need. I'm sure from your technology project, this is the party that your son or daughter wants to have. The difficult part is the human part, the emotions, and how do you work through that? And really what you want to do as the project manager, make sure that your senior sponsor, make sure that you as a project manager, that you're aligned and that you're having those check-ins with the team. You're not, unfortunately, going to keep everyone happy, but as long as you are being transparent, people may say, I don't agree with that, but I at least understand why you're doing that, right? Then they will feel heard and they will be a part of the project and part of the process.
It's almost like you're saying, listen to what you've been taught in your project management training class.
Yeah.
Listen to all the good practices that the people who came before you have developed. Use those good practices, implement those good practices, and you will end up with a high-performing team.
Yes. And I think the nice thing, Cornelius, is with I'm sure many people, that are listening, the nice thing, there are so many tools and templates. And sometimes, I remember, even know myself, sometimes your client, your customer, your business area may be so busy. I don't want to look at a stakeholder map. How's that going to help me? I don't want to do a communication plan. And if you're like, listen, I'm just going to take a step. It'll take 10 minutes. And I think and it's funny when you get that 10 minutes and all of a sudden they're like, well, what about this group? They're not on I was like, great point. And you almost say, it's like, if they didn't take those 10 to 15 minutes to kind of walk through your project charter and agree, hey, these are the resources. Are we comfortable? Does this timeline make sense? We want to deliver in January. And I know the whole company takes off the last 2 weeks of December. Is that going to work, or do you want to push? Let's be realistic. By sometimes, and I love kind of saying, why reinvent the wheel? Why not utilize those tools and templates and take those 15 minutes and just say, just want to sanity check. Did I miss anyone? Because believe me, people love to tell you about, oh, you missed this one, or this group, this group already has a face-to-face in November. Instead of sending an email in October, let's give you 15 minutes on the face-to-face. Like, that's gold when you're able to find those ways to get the real connections versus I'd rather a 15-minute on their leadership team than an email that we know may or may not get read.
All right. Our topic was the art and science of project management. We've covered a lot, so we're closing it kind of here, or we did close it with the human element, which means it's time for the takeaways. So, Shannon, what is it that you would like our audience to take away from our conversation here today? Maybe the top 2, 3 things that you think, you know what, this is really important. This is what you should take away. This is what you should do on your projects starting today, right now.
Yeah, I would say my top 2 to 3. I think the top one of them would be make sure that communications, transparent communications with your stakeholders. That to me is very important. I think the second one is understanding risk, being able to, and I think we talked about that balance between gold plating, scope creep, and really good change management. So communications, change management, and I think the third one is that human element, that fun, right? I think there are fun ways, even as we're doing doing meetings face to face. How do you put little fun at little polling, innovative, to make in this world where we are and the amount of time we spend at work and with people with work, how do you bring some innovative fun to project management and to the work that you do?
Once again, I was on mute. Very unusual for me here for this to happen. Thank you so much, Shannon. Much appreciated your time here today. Shannon Keenan from artemisfactor.com. We all appreciate your time. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Reach
All
out with
right.
any questions. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here with us today. As always, please do visit pm-podcast.com/504 for show notes, transcript, PDU information. And our email address is info@pm-podcast.com. And yes, if you are PMI certified, you can earn PDUs just for watching to or listening to this interview. It's going to be about 0.75 PDUs in the ways of working category. Check out our list of episodes where we tell you exactly how many PDUs you can earn at pm-podcast.com/PDU. And finally, we have this. Project management is part rocket science, part juggling flaming chainsaws. It is the art of staying calm while everything around you is on fire. And with that, until next time.